everyone, and welcome back to Women Power Impact, a podcast where we discuss women doing impactful work for other women and marginalized communities through nonprofits and community organizations. Today, we are speaking with Karley Zimmerman and Michal Chlebowski from the Society of Women Engineers in Pittsburgh. Michal and Karley, thank you so much for being here. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves and what roles you guys play in the organization.
Sure. Great. Thank you. Thanks for having us. Excited to be here. So I am Michal Chlebowski. I am the president of the Pittsburgh professional section of SWE. I've been in this role I'm going into my third year. I do work for Eaton Corporation as an industrialization manager, and I've been with the company for 23 years working in a variety of engineering roles, and happy to support women in engineering.
Yes, thank you, Prachi, for having us. My name is Karley Zimmerman. I am the VP of Programming for SWE Pittsburgh, and this is my second year as being VP and my third year working on the programming committee. I am a supplier quality engineer for Alstom here in Pittsburgh, and I've been there for 3.5 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So what brought both of you to SWE and the work that you do outside of your typical engineering roles? What kind of drew you to that, and what made you want to be part of it?
So back in 2019, our company began offering CPC or Corporate Partnership Council memberships for the Pittsburgh section of SWE. So I rejoined. Prior to that, I really wasn't aware there had been a section in our city. I was actively involved in college, so it's been a while. It got me excited to get back into the SWE society. And then in that time frame, our very committed VP of STEM outreach had reached out to a few of us specifically to help with a STEM outreach event that she needed some additional volunteers. And I started to get more engaged at that point. And then in 2022, I volunteered to take over our Carnegie Science Center coordinator role, which is leading once a month STEM events or hands-on activity tables at their events. And then I was approached about taking the secretary role and getting more involved with that organization in their executive council position. And then a year after that, our president decided that she needed to move on to a different role that wasn't as time consuming, and asked if I would be willing to step up and run for the president position. And I've been here ever since. What excited me to get more involved with SWE is it really just aligns with my goals and mission, wanting to, find that purpose, something where I can help other people be successful, particularly, women and underprivileged communities, bring exposure to STEM and engineering to those communities.
Excellent. Karley?
So I was an active member of SWE starting in college. I didn't join SWE until I was a senior. I went 5 years in college, and the biggest thing that drew me there was their Big Little program. So I started with mentorship, and I was really passionate about that, and I got a best friend out of it to this day. Just got off the phone with her, actually. So it's been about 7 or 8 years that we've known each other, which is really awesome. I graduated in 2020, so in the midst of COVID, so that made things really difficult. Being involved in SWE or any type of activity outside of work was difficult at that time. So it wasn't until I moved to Pittsburgh and now work at Alstom that I had some time to start volunteering and get back in. Not a lot of people know that there are professional sections. SWE in college is very popular, and then once they get out into the real world, they kind of forget, or they just don't know that their cities most likely have, especially the larger ones, have SWE organizations. And so I started on the program committee just as a volunteer, helping organize events for our members, really passionate about professional development, again, giving back. And that led me into taking over the VP position as our last VP wanted to move on to a different role and try something else.
Awesome. And in these roles, what do you find yourself doing on a daily basis?
Well, I can go first. I don't know that I do anything truly on a daily basis. I guess that's the advantage of the president role. I do, need to stay on top of emails and communications that need responded to. But mostly I'll block off chunks of time during the week, depending, on my other work and family priorities, and, focusing specifically on those SWE activities, including, I set up and organize the monthly meetings, the agendas. We meet our big meeting where our executive council gets together in person to transition our roles, to kind of lay out that outline for our goals and kind of keep track of, our progress and how we're performing to those goals. And then, supporting any event planning if we, are missing a chair role, kind of stepping up and taking over that responsibility if needed. But really just, staying connected to the other council members and preparing for any of our outreach or professional development or other meetings that we might have.
Yeah, similar to Michael, it's a little bit per month or per week, sorry. We typically have in programming one meeting per month. And then on the executive board, I'm also attending a meeting there per month. And the goal for VP of programming, or the programming committee as a whole, is to offer one event per month for our members. It could be anything from social, fundraising, volunteering to professional development. This could be in person, hybrid, or completely online. So we have a flexibility there, and we do a lot of different types of events.
Awesome. And that's exactly what my next question was going to be, and you answered it. So excellent. But yes, that's super cool. Kind of in the same vein of programming that you do for the members of your organization, I was exploring your website, and I did see that you have things for younger girls in high school and things. And in fact, actually, my high school apparently has some sort of like certification with SWE. So I was very excited to hear about that. So what kinds of opportunities do you offer? How can young girls get involved?
So SWE has what's called the SWENext program, and this is a free program that allows students from ages 5 to 18 to be able to join SWE engineering and technology community. So, and that's from the societal level. And then from the local side, we do have a SWENext coordinator who was our ex-VP of STEM outreach. So she does an amazing job with that role. She helps support schools that want to start their own SWENext club. And I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we do have a lot of SWENext clubs in the Pittsburgh region. And I believe we were the leaders of SWENext members in our region too, which was pretty exciting. Our professional section also, to SWENext members and high school students, we offer a Talk with an Engineer program, which is a great way to connect high school seniors, or even before seniors, if someone's interested in getting into the engineering or technology field, they can reach out and we partner them with someone in that field. We've had folks, ask for multiple disciplines because they don't know what type of engineering they might be interested in. So that's a great way, to connect with engineers and understand what we do on a day-to-day basis. We can also, students can connect to us through, we have a contact us form on our webpage, or they can email us directly if they have any questions or want to engage. Even we have a SWENexter annual event in the spring that's coordinated by our SWENext coordinator, and I think we typically get anywhere from like 30 to 40 high school females participating in that event. And it's a half a day full of just, networking with not only professional members, but we bring in collegiates that are really, fresh out of school that can relate to those students. And we do a couple of STEM activities, and it's just a great way to connect and help get more females excited about joining and participating in a career of engineering.
Sounds good. Yeah. I mean, my interests don't really lie in engineering. I'm more of like a humanities person, but a lot of my like really good friends are incredibly involved in like robotics and things. Like our school has an all girls robotics team that has been incredibly successful in not just like their competitive robotics, but just outreach. And I believe that's actually where I heard about SWE for the first time. My friend was very enthusiastic about it. So it's very exciting to hear about all that programming. Yeah. And so support SWE's efforts, even if they don't directly join the organization.
Well, there are a lot of different ways. First off, if anybody would like to donate or sponsor one of our events, that's a great way to help us. Even, you can sponsor as a company or organization, or even as a friend of SWE. And that our funding, we're a nonprofit, so all of our funding goes directly into the activities and events that we hold, such as STEM events or professional development events. And we also fund scholarships as well. We have a Certificate of Merit program that recognizes, I think we had over 50 high schools in the Certificate of Merit program this year. It recognizes high school students who are interested in going into career of engineering. We also have events that are open to both our members and non-members, including Karley's signature event, Professional Development Day. It's very popular. We bring in a lot of great speakers and have, just really wonderful networking in that community. We always asking for volunteers, so anyone can volunteer for a STEM event. You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to be a member, but we do require youth protection policy training is the only prerequisite. And probably a big one to support SWE's efforts is advocating for public policies that specifically promote equity in the workplace, as well as STEM education. So I think there was recently Family Medical Leave Act, which is important to support this community, as well as the STEM Restart Act. I don't think that's been brought back up yet. When I was in DC for Capitol Hill Day for SWE, that was an act that was planned to be brought back up again. But what that does is allow, particularly helpful and beneficial for women who might leave the workforce for a few years to start a family. It enables smaller businesses some funding to be able to bring those women back into, or, really anyone back into the workforce and help restart their career, providing, the training and support needed to do that.
Yeah. Karley, anything to add?
I think Mikey hit it.
Awesome. But yeah, the second part you mentioned about like the policies and like the family medical leave, that's something I found really interesting because I think I did see that on your website as I was exploring, and my interests are more in like public policy. And also my mom is an engineer. That was her background. She was in software. And so again, when she had me and my sister, I heard a lot about the experiences of just leaving the workforce, the struggles to come back in. Even she wasn't out for very long, and still like, she was like, yeah, I was passed over for promotions, or like, I just had a really hard time getting back in. So that's something definitely that I've developed an interest in, just hearing her experiences. But also kind of in the same vein, when you mentioned like equity and those kinds of things, obviously, in the current administration, a lot of things involving DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, have taken a lot of hits. And something I'm pretty sure your organization is involved in. Can you just speak on that? What have been kind of the difficulties that you've seen on your end? What is some work you're kind of doing to combat that?
on a personal level, I've been very fortunate. So I do work in an organization that truly believes in the value of DE&I. So we've always advocated for DE&I for the right reasons. We don't do it just to meet a quota. And that's why I'm still there. They have, excellent values when it comes to DE&I. Now, I did, as I mentioned, I supported SWE Capitol Hill Day back in April. And there was a large group of us from Pennsylvania that got together to meet with our state representatives. And I had the opportunity to chat with a few and to hear some personal stories about how they have known people personally affected by this. And this was back early April. So it wasn't that long after the policy rollback. But some of them personally knew of folks where they were graduate students going to college, doing research, and all the funding got pulled from those programs. So everything, all of their, hard work just went completely stopped. Others who had come from underprivileged backgrounds and had scholarships to be able to obtain a college education that otherwise they wouldn't have been able to pursue. Their funding got cut. So after, 3 years of college now, or maybe even 3.5, they lose all their funding and don't have a degree or the financial means to be able to continue to pursue that education on their own. So it has had a big impact, particularly for, the underprivileged communities, and a lot of research that was just completely stopped in the heart of all of this.
And I can speak a little bit from a personal level. For me, obviously, my company is a global company and obviously values DE&I for the right reasons, as well as just like Michael said. But here in America, our divisions here in America are obviously impacted, whereas our divisions in Canada, South America, Europe are not. And what that looks like is not being able to report gender-based KPIs that we were using before to help promote in our business how many women are in engineering, how many women are in a certain site, and using that to help with attending SWE conferences, so SWE National in the fall or SWE Locals in the spring, or doing outreach programs with colleges in partnership maybe with a SWE chapter in order to recruit more female engineers or more female candidates for our jobs. And that has been a point of frustration for a lot of people, especially I'm in the women's network at my work. And that, while it doesn't directly impact the type of events that we plan for our employees, it does put a damper on our existence, I guess, at work. But everything that Mikey said about research and everything, that's all the same things I'm hearing. I've also received a couple of emails from our members asking us to change their email on their account, because where they used their work email, they cannot. They want it to go to their personal emails because their companies are no longer supporting them or their participation in SWE or any other type of diverse organizations. And that can obviously affect their attendance at SWE National, SWE Locals, any type of diverse-based professional development opportunities if there's funding that needs to be involved. So that can obviously hurt their growth as an individual.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, but at least there are organizations, I think, like SWE and others, and that at least provide a kind of space, even if it's like just to like talk about these frustrations and like a common kind of like shared struggle. And that's kind of what I was going to talk about. Like, what is the importance of organizations like SWE to the community for young women, for just women in general? Organizations like SWE and SWE itself, of course, how has it been beneficial in your life, like even just starting in college, but also what is the impact you've seen for others?
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I'll go first on this one. Equity. Basically, for me, it was creating a space where I could be myself and be surrounded by other people with common shared experiences, i.e., going through engineering math or engineering physics when I was in college, or everyone's trying to get their resumes reviewed and like, how do we do a proper interview, or what company are you talking to? Now to representing being a part of a large group of women engineers and representing that to younger folks, showing them that they can do this. There is someone that looks like them or does what they want to do, or maybe we're doing something that they had no idea existed. We're providing those examples to them, and that's huge. And it's not about how many people you can impact. It's about the quality of every single impact you make. And I find that it's those personal interactions at SWE National Conference. There was a woman who came up to myself and a few other people who participated in a breakout session at SWE National, and she was emotional. She was a first-time mother who wanted to get back into the workforce, and she just didn't know where to start. She was so overwhelmed, and just being able to stand there and say, "You've got this. You have so many tools. Here's my email. Even if you never email me, that's okay. You can do this, and there are so many people here to support you." That's why we exist.
Yeah, and very similarly there. It just is. SWE just I don't know, resonates with me. I started in college. Again, when I had back then, as my kids like to say, in the 1900s. I think there might have been 3 females in my mechanical engineering classes. So to have the community of female engineers that was fairly large. I went to Penn State University, so it was a large campus, but collectively across all of the different engineering disciplines in different, years, it was a larger group of women, but having that social community to connect with it, like, okay, it's not just me, there are others like me that like math and like science and like physics, just to be able to connect. One of the things that draws, and I mentioned this earlier, myself to SWE, because of the community support that it brings, and really supporting STEM education for everyone, and just bringing that to the table and supporting to people that might not necessarily have that opportunity, reaching out to the schools that might not have great STEM capabilities because of the funding that they get. We have such a huge gap with a number of open engineering jobs and the available engineers to fill them. So every person, student, child that we can engage and get excited about engineering is going to help to close that gap over the next several years. We have a lot of retirements coming up, and we're just not getting that same number of engineers graduating from college. And really, engineering is our future. Look at, everything that we do, the power grids. Just so happens I work in the electrical industry, but there's so many open and available jobs. So if we don't, reach out and get more of the capable folks engaged in educating, providing that education and engagement, we're going to be hurting in a few years and not being able to fill those types of roles.
Yeah, I definitely see that importance. Even as you mentioned, like just having like three women in your mechanical engineering class. Like even at this point today, like I see in my schools like AP Physics C, which is like E&M. I don't know what it stands for, but I remember I was talking to my friend and she was like, "Yeah, it's like me and one other girl in there in a class of like even just like 10 or 12, which it's relatively not very many people take it. It's a very difficult class, but just the fact that like even compared to physics the year before, fewer girls end up taking it. So yeah, I think definitely the work that you do, the work, just this idea that there's a sisterhood that exists to support it is incredibly important. And finally, to wrap things up, like to ask my guests, all of my guests, this question, which is, what is some advice you have for young women today, just based on your life experiences, what you've seen in your work?
Don't be afraid to follow your ambition and your dreams. Don't let other people intimidate you. This is, well, I like to say, this is your journey, and make it matter. Um, you know, I like to try to find, my purpose in life, and make a legacy in some way, shape, or form. So, get out of your comfort zone, make those connections, build relationships, grow your network. As an introvert, I struggle heavily with that. So, I always encourage, folks that have, similar nature, that you can do it. And it's just a really important way to grow and connect with other people, and build that community. Also, find your passion and what you really love to do, and leverage that to help others, along the way. So, I love what I do. I use my passion to help mentor other future engineers, particularly, a lot of females in our organization will reach out to me. And I try to just help provide that encouragement and support. I can speak, to other fellow new mothers who sometimes find a career in engineering a little daunting. But really, yeah, just, don't be intimidated. Make your own journey, and, make a difference.
I have two. The first one is always be kind. Like Ted Lasso says, be curious, not judgmental. Kindness is, even though a lot of people feel that it's a woman's characteristic, it is a human characteristic. And I have gotten so far and dealt with so many difficult relationships and difficult situations out of kindness. People really see that. And it doesn't matter who they are, how difficult they can be. If you're a kind person, you will get somewhere. So whether it's networking, whether it's handling difficult relationships with coworkers, family members, friends, acquaintances, whatever it is, it goes very, very far. So always practicing that is a big one. And then the second thing is, if you say what you're going to do and then you do what you say, by being reliable, being trustworthy, being transparent, and authentically yourself, failure does not exist. You're going to make mistakes, but if you already have all of those tools, then making it right is going to be very simple. Again, working on those things that make you the person to go to when people need help, or when you say you're going to do something, showing up and doing it, not hiding anything, being upfront with people while still being kind, and then being yourself. If you're in an environment where you're not being treated well for being yourself, then it is not the right space for you. And that's okay. You are allowed to quit somewhere. It doesn't mean you failed. You just need to go somewhere that is right for you. And I think that was one of the hardest things that I had to learn in my career journey. But yes, always be kind.
I absolutely love all of those. Thank you so much. And I think that wraps up our interview for today. Thank you guys so much for your insightful answers.
And that wraps up our episode for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you back soon for the next episode of Women Power Impact.